I can't wait any longer. I'm 54, and next year when I turn 55, I'm taking my pension and I'm going to retire early at 55, whether the numbers add up or not. I'm getting tired of just working and living to pay the bills. So today I'm going to tell you how and why I'm going to do this, what it means for mine and my wife's future, and why I don't care what the experts say. So next year when I turn 55, I'm going to cash in 25% or thereabouts, maybe less, of my currently £150,000 personal pension, which is currently in a SIP with Hargreaves Lansdown, HL. I'm going to sell the house, we're going to get all the money in the bank, and then we're going to take a breather and live life on the road in a caravan after buying a suitable tow vehicle. When I say take a breather, we're going to then start looking at how we want the rest of our lives to look. Now, the reason for doing this is not because I'm lazy. I'm not shy of hard work. I've been working hard all my life since age 16, 15 actually. But as I've got older, my outlook on life has, I suppose, changed. My perspective has changed. My father took his life at 59. I was 27 at the time. I didn't realise the full impact of that until I became a little bit older and closer to the age that he went. When you look into it, you know, the stats say that men under 50, that is the biggest cause of death. 1 in 4 of young men aged between 20 and 35, that's the biggest cause of death. There's something terribly, terribly wrong with the current system. And this is what we're looking to do. We're looking to break out of the current system, and of course, institutionalized people who are used to, who are brainwashed into staying on that current system, are going to resist anyone who tries to break away from it. And then we've experienced a lot of that. And also, you know, we've both become very aware of our own mortality. So, you know, I'll be coming up 55. My wife is 60 this year. So she's got 7 years till she receives state pension. I've got, you know, about 12 years. My 150,000 pension plus any equity that we have in the property, we're hoping it's around 100,000. It might be nothing, you know. It might be nothing, in which case we're just going to have to walk away and we're going to have to adjust our plans accordingly. But hopefully, all being well, we'll be able to release or have some equity in the house sale. And then we can live on that until we receive state pension. Now, a lot of people have been saying, you know, you can't do that, it's not going to work, your figures don't add up, there's no way you can live on that kind of frugality. We're used to living frugal, we really are. You know, when you bear in mind, council tax for me is £153 a month currently. It's gone up from £145 last year. My mortgage, you know, it's the interest-only mortgage that we have. If you want to know why we've got all of that, have a look at my previous videos. I'll explain it a bit more in there. But the, you know, those two alone. So that's what 890, nearly £900 just on the mortgage and council tax. And on top of that, you've got electric and gas bills. Well, you know, if we're living life in a caravan, I'm going to have all the electricity. We have no council tax, no mortgage. We will have probably about 300 a month or so in camping fees, but it's going to be drastically reduced, massively reduced, and then we'll have money in the bank that will still be invested in a drawdown, a flexible drawdown if you like, to draw on, and that will still be earning gains whilst we're drawing on it, if you know what I mean. So hopefully that will slow down the decline of the funds if it's invested in the right stuff. And that's something we're looking at, and we've had some really good ideas from and some suggestions from people, you know, like bonds and interest bearing savings accounts and that kind of stuff. And I'll be looking into all of that to try to minimise the risk, really. So, you know, another reason is health. I said we're both very aware of our own mortality. Now, we haven't really got early deaths in the family, you know, history-wise, but you never know. You just never know. I see it all the time where people, you know, retire, and in the moment they retire, they're gone. And I can't be dealing with that, you know. Health-wise, we're both very healthy. My wife's probably much more healthier than I am, even at 5 years older than me. You know, she runs regularly. Does park run every week and does these really, really long runs and stuff like that. Really got into running. I used to do weight training a lot, and I'm just starting to get back into that now. And the reason being is, looking at the stats, again, the biggest cause of death for anyone aged 55 and upwards is something called ischemic heart disease. And one of the main factors of that is stress, as well as belly fat, which I'm starting to accrue. And weight training is the best way to get rid of, or resistance training is the best way to get rid of belly fat, is my understanding. Not sit-ups or crunches. That won't do anything for you whatsoever, and dieting massively won't help either at this stage. So I'm getting back on the weights. Excuse all this noise around, by the way. I've got the windows open because it's really, really hot. So the reason we want to step off the system's conveyor belt, if you like, so that we can do more with our lives than you can do on a normal holiday. You know, when you do a holiday, I remember when I was working at the bank, it was really, really stressful. I worked in a high street bank for 13 years as a manager. Massively stressful job. I'd take 2 weeks holiday a year. You know, we'd go down the south of France, lovely, but it would take me nearly a week to kind of cool down and chill out and wind down from work, from the stresses of work. And then I'd have, you know, barely a week, and then we've got to travel back again. And then the last few days I'd be winding back up, sort of getting into character, you know, for work. And I just can't. I went self-employed 9 years ago. And it's been the best thing I've ever done. You know, we've had to live fairly frugally because your income goes up and down, and you try and save in the good times for the bad times. You know, it doesn't always work out that way, but you know, we have muddled through, and we've got to where we're at now. So I think the transition from working full time, going to sort of a retirement, or if you like, a permanent holiday, is what I like to call it, is going to be easier than leaving a full time career for me. You know, I think. Definitely, because it's a lot. It was a big jump to go from that career, which I took earlier. I took a redundancy from the bank, to self-employment. That was a big jump. So again, it's a slightly lesser jump to go from self-employment to retirement, in my opinion. But yeah, you know, budget-wise, I thought of a phrase yesterday when I was thinking about making this video, and I thought, you know what, I would rather. Bearing in mind those stats I've just talked about, I would rather run out of money than run out of the will to live. And that kind of sums up where I'm at. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, I've got mental health problems or what have you, you know, that fall into that sort of category. But, you know, there have been times where I've been just absolutely overwhelmed with the bleakness of everything, and the drudgery of trying to keep up with bills and just working solid just to pay the bills, especially with all this cost of living, which apparently the cost of living crisis is now finished. Okay, so no more whinging about it. I saw an article on Sky News this morning. Cost of living is over, apparently. I mean, these idiots, where do they get their information from? I thought bills are still going up and wages are still going down. Is that right? Or am I living in some different world? So yeah, running out of money is something that could happen. Yeah, it could happen. Could happen to anyone, couldn't it? Really. And you know, I sort of think about how many pensioners. Somebody made a comment that made me think about this. How many pensioners, you know, are living in this country on literally just the pension and are scraping through, you know, and have kicked off about the winter fuel allowance, how that's majorly affected them. They're talking about pensioners dying because they can't afford to put their heating on in the winter, right? That's tough living. Now, I don't expect to be in that boat. I really don't. You know, we're going to have two pensions between us. Once they both state pensions kick in, we'll have this money behind us. We'll have the equity in the property, and we're going to hopefully have it invested right, so that we won't be put in that position. But do you know what? Even if we are, we're never going to die of starvation. We're staying in the Western world, right? We're not going to die of starvation or die of thirst. It's just not going to happen. You know, if I could quite happily drink water out of a puddle if I had to with my microfilter, right? It's not going to result to that. But you know, survival. Are we going to be literally basic survival, living in the woods, catching our own food? No, never. Not in the Western world, unless the Western world collapses, in which case we've all got problems, haven't we? Yeah, I'm going off on a tangent here, but what I'm trying to say is, you know, we're willing to take that risk. We're willing to take the risk of, you know, possibly things being a little bit tight and having to be extra frugal because the money's looking like it's starting to run out, you know. But I'm confident in our abilities to stay to budget, and we'll just do what it takes to live. You know, we'll still be free. At the end of the day, that's the thing. It's all about the freedom of being able to make those choices and being able to, you know, change what we're doing or move around and move to a different area or do something, and we'll have that freedom to make those choices where we wouldn't have if we were just continually paying the damn stupid bills and working to only pay the bills and everything else. You know, having a holiday every year for 2 weeks is not my idea of freedom. Absolutely not. So, you know, I've worked solid all my life. I've built up this private pension. This private pension is kind of the rewards for all the stress that I had whilst working in that bank for all that time, and a couple of other pensions that I've moved over from previous employments, and I've been self-investing them in my SIP, and you know, that's the pot that we've got, and that's the pot we're going to deal with, and we're going to take it. And we're going to go for it, you know. So we want to give it a go. I didn't want this video to be negative in any way. I just wanted to explain some of the reasons behind why we're both, you know, and we're both very together on this. You know, we're both very on board on this. We talk about it all the time. We both know exactly what's going on. You know, it's not like I'm making all the decisions here and then my wife is following me. We are both discussing this on a constant all-day basis, and it's nice to have the time to do that as well. But yeah, we're both fully on board, and every time we change direction or we look at different plans, you know, we're both fully on board. We discuss it properly. You know, yes, there's going to be slight differences of opinion, but there's no major compromise. There really isn't. You know, we're both fully on board with each other's kind of dreams and what we want out of life going forward. And all the while I'm making videos like this, it helps me get into the mindset of, you know, what we actually want as well. And quite often I end up just thinking out loud, you know, which you have to suffer. But you know, I appreciate anyone who comes back and you know, comes back for more. So on that note, yeah, I do appreciate all of your support. I appreciate your supportive comments. I support you coming back and watching the channel and following our journey. You know, whether it's something you're planning on doing or whether it's just something you just want to watch just to see how it pans out. You know, either or, I'm more than happy to document all of it and lay it all on the line for you. You know, that's what I'm about. I wanted to say a special appreciation to Joe Hunter 643 and Feffel Blog for your recent super thanks. Much appreciated. Thanks ever so much for that. It helps motivate me knowing that people are kind of supporting our journey, and it kind of validates, if you like, you know, that we're actually doing the right thing. We're actually doing something that's worthwhile. So, you know, and again, if you've watched this far and maybe watched a couple of our videos and haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe, like the videos. It all helps tell YouTube that we're doing the right things, and glad to have you on board watching the journey, you know. So it's just a little update on the kind of mindset as to why we're doing what we're doing, really. There are some other factors which I'll go into on other videos, but in the meantime, I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you on the next video.